Deadlock's latest patch finds 4 new characters joining the game, and it didn't take me long to figure out which one I wanted to play. Not Sinclair, not Holiday, definitely not Viper, but also not Calico. I want to play as Ava, the cat, Calico's cat. This is the cat maxing build guide.
Been down.
Here.
I see Chrono.
Guess we
I'm sorry, it's
overstayed.
deceptive. Deceptive for me to say.
Wait,
that
what am I
shit first
watching?
when I'm not intentionally doing it.
Wait, did you see this guy just running in there with that?
Run, kitty, run! Meow,
I'm running.
meow, 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 meow.
It's crazy how you're just cat.
Are you really chasing him? Oh my god, I can't get into my spawn.
Dude, where's this paradox at? Oh, I found her.
I'm a fucking rabbit.
I got her. Did you catch her?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm stuck. I'm here, but as soon as the dump goes down, I'm here. I got her. I should get her. Ah! She's one.
Get her!
Got her.
Cat one.
Yeah. I want you to get that. How does that feel as a tank? I'm actually curious.
I'm not really sure what it does.
It does like 150 damage per hit.
So we'll start by looking at the abilities that Calico has. And starting out with Calico's 1, we have Gloom Bombs. So Gloom Bombs throw a volley of projectile explosives towards the opponent. They do formidable amounts of damage, and they're on a relatively low cooldown, which means that it's going to be a very helpful tool to have during the laning phase of the game. Truthfully, the laning phase of the game is this build's weakest point, so it's going to help to have these Gloom Bombs to help us out a little bit there. We also have Leaping Slash. This is Calico's 2. My quick note for Leaping Slash, obviously the ability itself, it pushes you forward in a direction, it does damage, and it actually heals you a little bit. So in a pinch, it does a good amount of damage, it does a respectable amount of healing, so it can be helpful for those things. But I think that Leaping Slash is best as a mobility tool. So when using Leaping Slash as a mobility tool, you want to make sure that you know how it works. If you point up and you activate Leaping Slash, you're actually not going to get any verticality by using the ability. To get verticality, you need to be airborne. So if you want to go, say, on top of a building while using Leaping Slash, you need to actually jump in order to get that kind of height that you would need to get on top of a building or to just get higher elevation. So make sure you do that when using Leaping Slash. We're going to skip over Ava. We got some things to say about that. But before we do, Return to the Shadows. This is Calico's ultimate ability. It has a ethereal shift quality to it where you're invincible while in that phase. And that is very, very strong, of course. But it also does damage twice to opponents. It does damage on activating. And you'll see here again, it does damage when exiting the Return to the Shadows ultimate. My important note for Return to the Shadows is once it is maxed, it actually resets your cooldowns for your other abilities. So if you dumped out, I know I have no cooldown on in the sandbox, but if I dumped out my Gloom Bombs and I used Leaping Slash, if I had just popped out of Ava, then using Return to the Shadows is going to reset all of those cooldowns and you're back in business. So it's a very strong ultimate there once maxed out. Then, of course, we have the star of the show, Ava. Ava transforms us into a cat of that namesake, a spectral feline that we get to play as. The trick here is you don't get to use any abilities. You move very fast, right? So right away, this kind of feels like maybe it's a ganking tool. We can rotate quickly. But as soon as I press, say, my Gloom Bombs, it's going to kick me back into Calico form to use that ability. I can't use that ability in Ava form. But if you have, say, Cold Front or any other active items, you actually are able to use those abilities while in Ava form. You're also able to have things like Torment Pulse activate. And I think with that information, you probably see where this build is going. When it comes to ability upgrade order, I would start by giving us 1 point into Gloom Bombs. That's just going to help us out a little bit in the laning phase so that we can get our money up and participate in the early game of Deadlock. But after that, I am going to start saving AP for Ultimate. So I'm actually going to fully max out my Ultimate second after putting that 1 point in Gloom Bombs for a little bit of extra damage. Yes, this is a cat build. It seems like it would be obvious to throw a lot of points into Ava right away, but I argue that maxing out your ultimate to get the additional cooldown time, the resetting of your cooldowns after use, is really going to help you keep that cat uptime. You're going to be cat more just by maxing out your ultimate. So trust me on that. Try it out for yourself and tell me what you think. But I think we max out Return to the Shadows next, and then we go over to Ava and start working on maxing out Ava. When you upgrade Ava, you're going to get lower cooldowns, increased duration, and you're going to be even faster in the cat form. So you really do get big buffs for upgrading Ava. And at that point, you actually get to a point in the game where you could be infinite cat if you wanted. You'd never have to leave Ava form. I mean, obviously the cooldown will expire, but then, or the duration will expire, but then the cooldown's already over, and you can just get right back into cat form in game, which is insane if you're building for that, which we are, right? So after I've maxed out Return to the Shadows and Ava, then we go back to 1 and 2. I like to put one more AP into Gloom Bombs to get that up to 2nd level. Then I'll give a couple to Leaping Slash to get that kind of back up to where it needs to be. And, you know, it's personal preference here, but I'd go Gloom Bombs. And if the game was really long and you had everything maxed out, my last point would go to Leaping Slash. Let's check out the items. So here is a full look at the Cat Maxer build. You can see we have it broken up into some pretty standard categories. We have our laning items here. I'm not going to go into detail on every single item, but one thing I can point out by using rapid rounds as an example is a lot of the items are picked for maybe one of the unintended or the not primary focuses of that item, right? Rapid rounds, it increases your fire rate, which is good. It's good for Ava, it's good for everybody. But it also gives us that 1 sprint speed. And so we're constantly looking when making this build for things that give us a couple of different benefits that fit the Ava playstyle. So this is what we have through the laning phase. You'll see that as we get toward the end of the laning phase, we're starting to get even more into movement speed, sprint speed, and that's because that's the playstyle. We want to exist in our lane, do a good job, but then towards the end of that laning phase, we want to be able to go look for a gank, or we want to be able to start running crates and running boxes. And so the increased movement speed is going to be the key to that. We also are going to pick up Cold Front, because Cold Front is the best feel-good item that I think you can have while in cat form. You get to use those active items, and Cold Front does a ton of damage, really helps with a wave clear, a camp clear, up to those medium camps in the middle of the game. So being able to just go into the enemy backline, clear a camp, and then continue on about your day is a great feeling, and it is really, really optimal for the Ava playstyle. As the laning phase ends, we're going to be continuing to invest in the go fast, go fast, go fast playstyle with enduring speed, fleet foot, and divine barriers. We pick up a lot of active items. This is a build that you're gonna make sure you're comfortable pressing those active item buttons, because that's the only thing we can use while in cap form. So we're going to be getting maxed out active items in this build for sure. Divine Barrier and Fleetfoot, having both of them, yes, we're not always using them for the highlighted purpose of moving faster while shooting. We just want to be moving faster, or in Divine Barrier's case, giving that shield. We're moving faster, and it's going to feel like you always have one of these off cooldown, and you're able to really, really, really optimize those box routes that you may be going throughout the map, quickly getting over to gank. You'll find other use cases for Divine Barrier 2 helping out with an ally, so it's just a good ability to have. For now, it will be something we could look to sell later into the game if that is something that you would be interested in. Now, once we've made all of our laning purchases, and once we've purchased the things that help us go fast, we get into the really fun part, which is when we get to start using Torment Pulse. Torment Pulse is the key to letting us feel like we're active, and we are being active. Trust me, these Torment Pulse damage numbers in these games, very legitimate numbers. It's the start to that. So Torment Pulse, it goes hand in hand with Mystic Vulnerability, and then ultimately an escalating exposure, which is going to continue to shred that spirit resistance of the enemy team. You're able in a team fight to proc these debuffs onto so many people on the enemy team because you are right in the middle of them. So it is actually not trolling to be the cat, I promise. So you can tell your teammates I said that. They're not going to believe you anyway, but it's going to be a good time. Improved cooldown and superior cooldown, that's going to help us. Torment Pulse basically becomes our auto attack. We don't have an auto attack in cat form, but now with Torment Pulse we do. We're hitting people, and that improved cooldown is actually going to drop Torment Pulse to a point where it's proccing at a very consistent rate. For superior cooldown, I would recommend putting that cooldown on your ultimate, and you'll see why in some of the gameplay. That is just such an important ability. It really allows us to keep our uptime going in fights, so I definitely suggest throwing superior cooldown on the ultimate. it's a great place to be. So moving on to a couple of other categories I have here, we have cat debuffs people. That's because we are proccing Torment Pulse all the time. So if we can apply debuffs to a large number of the enemy team, then our team is going to have a significant, tangible advantage in these team fights. Healbane, I feel like, is the staple debuff in the game, and it works in so many situations, so I do have that perked in the build. Decay, another active item that we can use to debuff and also do decent damage to opponents as well. And then Suppressor building into Mystic Slow is a great way to apply movement slow to the enemy teams, another way that we're going to help our team out in these team fights. Moving on to late game options, we have a few different ways that you can go. And this is really, when you have toward the end of the game, you can kind of pick and choose how you want to spend this money. I definitely recommend picking up Improved Spirit. It's going to help our Torment Pulse, Cold Front, Decay, all of our spirit damage that we are dealing out. And then Boundless Spirit as well on top of that. I would recommend going to Boundless Spirit if you get a late game in that, if you get a game that runs that late. I would go Boundless Spirit in most situations. Am I really picking up Shadow Weave every game? Am I really getting to Veilwalker? You'd have to be in a pretty tough, long-running match, but maybe you like those items and you might prefer to pick them up a little bit earlier. Another thing that I leave up to you as far as what you might want to consider putting in would be some other active item options. Alchemical Fire is a very feels good. It's almost like having a second Cold Front. It does different things and it works in different situations, but it still is one of those buttons that lets you do a substantial amount of damage. Rescue Beam, so interesting. I haven't gotten to do it yet, and I very much intend to do so soon, but I think there is merit in a cat support build. I've heard some people talking about this, putting Rescue Beam, Divine Barriers in here already. If you want to lean into that, Rescue Beam's a great item to pick up. And then we have a whole slew of purple active items that do different types of debuffs or damage and provide you with different perks. It's like Withering Whip is interesting because it has sprint speed attached. It could be even faster, right? But typically I prefer Cold Front Decay for the amount of damage output and where we're at in balancing damage versus speed. But I definitely recommend trying out some of the other actives, and I recommend, putting something else. If you have an idea of other items that may fit into the build, give it a try. Definitely let me know what you think works best, but I would start here if you're looking for how to get to maxing out your cat. All right, let's check out some gameplay. As we are about to look at gameplay, there is one thing I want to make sure, one tip I want to make sure everybody is familiar with for using your mechanics, a mechanical tip on Calico. And think about it, when you're typically engaging in a mid to late game fight as Calico, you're probably coming in from hitting some crates or running out some camps, or you're just using Cat to get into the fight. So you're coming in as Cat, as Ava, and when you're entering the fight, you are likely going to look to use your ult. It's a huge impactful tool for these fights. And there's two trains of thoughts. You can use your ult early in the team fight to engage, or you can use your ult a little bit later in the team fight to maybe be the final nail in the coffin that helps your team solidify that win. It's situational, but typically I do like to try and engage with my ultimate. The reason for that being that, especially once it's imbued with superior cooldown, the cooldown is very short, and in a particularly long and drawn out fight, you may even be able to use a second ultimate if you engage with your ultimate to start. Regardless of what you pick, how you engage with that ultimate can be the difference in getting a lot of value or getting a fine amount of value. And if you want to get a lot of value coming into the fight as Ava, you need to cooldown dump before pressing your ultimate, assuming that your ultimate is max leveled, and that's because your ultimate is going to give you all those cooldowns back. So if I'm rushing into a fight, usually I'm going to use Gloom, my Gloom bombs to get out of my Ava, and then I will scratch Leaping Slash into the opponent, and that puts me in the perfect position to use my ultimate, hit them with that activation damage, hit them with the closing damage the whole time I'm applying debuffs, hitting them with Torment Pulse, and that's a big impact engage. The trick that you need to be careful about if you want to keep your uptime active and you want to be in the fight applying these debuffs even beyond your ultimate is you need to be ready to click your Ava ability right after your ultimate ends, because it's going to refresh all your cooldowns. But if you take any damage before you click on Ava, you're not going to be able to click Ava for 5 seconds until you are 5 seconds out of combat. Anytime you take damage, Ava's going to go on a 5-second cooldown. So my tip to you as soon as your ultimate is about to end, start spamming your 3 a little bit to make sure you're going right back into Ava form, and that's going to let you keep your uptime high, apply all your debuffs, use your active items, and just be that general annoying mosquito that won't leave the enemy team alone. Alright, so we are looking at some gameplay now. This is about an Oracle lobby. A lot of these lobbies I'm playing in my testing for this build were low Oracle to high Phantom lobbies, and I found success across that range. We're about 4 minutes into the VOD here, and so we're looking at a example of a little bit of a skirmish that's breaking out during the laning phase. This is a good demonstration of the type of damage that is possible, that you're capable of executing during the laning phase here, relying a lot on my 1 to do damage and relying on 2 for damage and for healing and for mobility. Like here, got a little bit sticky. This team fight didn't look too advantageous for me, so I can use my 2 to jump out of that team fight. Very, very helpful. The big thing about laning on Calico is that you're looking to play for these opportunities. Some heroes, I think, fare better at doing damage and making it a hard time for the opposing team, but I think here it's about playing your lane fundamentally correct, managing your wave in a smart way so that you can play for opportunities outside of your wave, right? So here I'm looking to clear this wave as quickly as possible, keep my health, you know, up and healthy, myself healthy, but I'm constantly looking at the minimap, looking at opportunities around. So now that I clear out that wave, we have a little bit of freedom to go make an off-lane play happen. And for me, this instance, in this scenario, I choose to do a little bit of a crate or a statue run, and that's a pretty good, I would say this is a pretty good idea. The other type of opportunity you may find would be going to a neighboring lane and providing help with a gank. You can see my Guinness over here is actually getting a camp of their own, and I'm making it back just in time to catch the entire wave. That's pretty powerful, being able to run a crate route or 2 and come back to pick up the entire wave. I kind of overextend here. That was a little bit silly, but Guinness helps me out. We survived. That's some good laning taking place here on the Calico. So fast forwarding just a little bit here, we're at the 12-minute mark, and we are checking out what the gameplay looks like the more and more that we're investing into these items that are going to help us move a little bit faster, right? So I have Fleet Foot, I have Divine Barrier, and we're moving pretty fast, and I can use these actives to help me move faster as well. So this is where we really pick up into running these boxes, these crates. I am ending games with the majority of my souls coming from these types of boxes, and these, I believe the game classifies it as natural creeps or something to that effect, that says I'm getting it from jungle camps or boxes, and boxes are a massive part of that. And you can see how fast I am. I'm actually able to run that entire route and make it back to, you know, to clean a wave up at my walker here and just get value all around the map thanks to Ava. This is an example of maybe a mid to late game team fight. This particular scenario is a little bit strange, but it's a little bit maybe more of a skirmish, but I pull up onto a skirmish here, get there really quickly with Ava. I'm using my active abilities and I'm proccing Torment Pulse, right? Every time I hit an enemy. A little bit of a weird spectator bug here, you just have to ignore. Sorry for that. Deadlock spectator is as it is. Use my ults, and I'm active, right? I'm in the middle of this team fight at full HP because the enemy team really can't do much to focus on me. It wouldn't be beneficial for them to do that because I'm just such a hard target to hit. And I chase down the Viscus there. I'm able to provide vision on that Viscus. I think that's something that Calico really brings to the table in the Ava form. And I make it back to the skirmish where a Mo and Krill is involved now. And I'm able to chase down the Mo and Krill, keep giving my team vision. My team knows where this player is at. I'm debuffing them as well, right? So applying this debuff to a target my team is trying to chase down and find the elimination on, and just staying with it because I have that high mobility. I end up doing the most damage in this lobby. I don't advertise that is what this build is trying to do, but I end this game with the most damage on the team, and a lot of that is Torment Pulse damage. The majority of that is Torment Pulse damage. So you do an absolutely formidable amount of damage. These late game fights are so interesting to look at, and we can look at 100 more, but this video is getting quite long, so I want to cut it off here pretty quickly. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please, please, please give me some feedback in the comments below. I want to know what you guys think about this build and how or if you're going to be playing it in your games. And I look forward to seeing you in another video down the line. Thanks, guys.